Due to YouTube's time limit on videos, this video has been split into two parts. This is the beginning of part 2. If you have not seen part 1 of this video, please see the first part linked in this part's description. These are the rules for the Q&A. 1. Only one question per person per Q&A. If you ask more than one question, only your first question will be answered and the rest will be ignored. 2. Check previous Q&As for already answered questions. Each question is listed in the description section of that video. 3. Questions must be game related.
Next question. Do you like the Guitar Hero series? Never tried it. It's not something that I think I'd want to try. So no. Next question. Do you find the Devil May Cry games difficult? Only game I've played was Devil May Cry 4, and I ran through it twice on normal, and that wasn't hard, so I can't comment on the other games or the other difficulty modes. Next question. Did you ever beat Mike Tyson's Punch-Out when you were a kid? No, I never did. I don't know anybody back then who beat it. Next question. What is the best fighting series? I mean, it's subjective, but my personal favorite is Street Fighter, though I haven't played a fighting game since Mortal Kombat 4, so haven't really had any experience with next-gen fighting games. Next question. What game scared you the most? Resident Evil 1. I mean, like I said, it was new to me. Never seen anything like that, but by the time you played Silent Hill and the other Resident Evil games, you've seen it before, so you know what to expect. Next question. What are your top 5 RPGs for the Xbox 360? Wow, I haven't even had time to play even one RPG for the 360. But I'll make some notable mentions. I've heard Eternal Sonata is good. My brother's played Lost Odyssey. He seems to like it, so that's a game I'm gonna try. So you know, I'll defer this question until I've actually played more than 5 RPGs for the 360. Next question. What is your favorite Resident Evil game? I'm torn between Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 1. Resident Evil 1 because, you know, it was new and big impact on me. Resident Evil 4 because it sort of revitalized a series that was getting stale. By CVX, Resident Evil 0, and Resident Evil 3, it started to get kind of stale, so Resident Evil 4 revitalized the series, and so I gotta give it credit for that. But if I had to pick one, go with Resident Evil 4. Next question. What game, if any, would you define as before its time? This is a tricky one. I had to actually think about this one for a while, and really, in doing so, I had to sort of create, you know, some, however flabby or spontaneous, a criteria as to why I would call a game ahead of its time. And really, for me to call a game, or to classify a game as before its time, it would have to introduce something new, something we haven't seen before, and have a significant impact on gaming. And using that criteria, a game that immediately comes to mind would be Mortal Kombat. And you might be thinking, oh, that's just like Street Fighter, and I say it's ahead of its time, not because of its gameplay, but because of its social impact on gaming. And I would argue, now some people might disagree with this, and that's fine, but I would argue that that society wasn't really ready for Mortal Kombat. I mean, back then games were innocent. They were, you know, supposedly just for kids. You know, they're supposed to be, you know, just for fun. They weren't supposed to be mature, you know, like they are now. And Mortal Kombat just said fuck that shit to all that shit. And you know, you had fatalities, you had copious amounts of blood, you had the pit, which I thought was badass, you know, as a 12-year-old kid looking at that shit. And, you know, you had, you know, Nintendo saying, "Oh, you gotta censor that shit if you want it on our system," and Sega was like, "Nah, you can keep the blood," and you had this big flame war, you know, all these fucking fanboy arguments and people writing angry letters to GamePro and Electronic Gaming Monthly saying that Nintendo sucks and how they're not gonna buy the Super Nintendo of Mortal Kombat, and how they're gonna get the Genesis and all this shit, and so what it did is it Mortal Kombat made that kind of shit, that kind of violence, that kind of graphic gore acceptable in gaming. It started a trend, and for that reason I would argue that Mortal Kombat was ahead of its time. Alright, next question. What is your favorite gaming genre? I like RPGs. Now that might be ironic coming from someone who just said that they haven't played a next-gen RPG, but yeah, RPGs. Next question. Have you ever played Bomberman Act Zero? And if you have you been able to get past all the 99 levels? No, I haven't played Bomberman Act Zero, and I don't want to. Quite frankly. Have you ever played Yoshi's Story for the N64? If so, how would you compare it to Yoshi's Island for the Super Nintendo? I haven't actually tried either of those games, so I'm gonna have to defer this one. But yeah, I'll try these couple games. Someday I'll make a video with deferred questions, like, you know, what do you think about Brawl, or, you know, your top 5 RPGs for the 360. So this one gets deferred. Oh, and if your question gets deferred, you can ask another one for the Q&A, for the next Q&A. That's all the questions for this time, and send me your questions. I prefer that you type them up in the comment section of this Q&A video rather than sending me a PM or typing them on the comments box of my page, because, you know, it can get lost in the shuffle and it's hard for me to keep track. So to ensure your question doesn't get lost in the shuffle, type it in the comments box. And until next time, thanks for watching.